Greetings, this is Silent James. And Spooky. Spooky's joining me today because this is my annual spooky video. It's almost Halloween, and to get everyone in the Halloween spirit, I have some spooky music to recommend to you. These are all albums I have on vinyl. Just a quick note about vinyl and why it's beneficial, especially if you are an artist or anybody who spends a lot of time on their own, working, endlessly to hone their craft. The special thing about records is that not only do they sound amazing and you get the big package that it comes in with the artwork and the lyrics, and it's just like a all-around wonderful experience. The other great thing is that it forces you to take breaks because you have to flip the album. So I hope you enjoy this video and that it gets you in the Halloween spirit. These are my most favorite spooky albums that I have on vinyl. You can't have Halloween without The Crow. You may be thinking that this is the soundtrack to the Crow movie. It isn't. Believe it or not, this is the soundtrack to the Crow comic. So the comic was drawn by James O'Barr. It has really beautiful black and white artwork, and this cover is drawn by him as well. It's just so beautiful, the image. And what he did was he wrote a bunch of songs, and this band, Trust Obey, made this album of all his songs. The album's called Fear and Bullets. I was in New York recently for live illustrating an event, and I was shopping at Generation Records, which is one of my favorite record stores, and I saw this and I was like, what is this? And so it has brand new artwork by the artist of The Crow. Comes with more artwork. The other really cool thing about this is the vinyl itself is on this spooky, smoky, clear. It's just really so beautiful. It reminds me of being, watching the movie The Crow, which to me is, that's Halloween right there. So yeah, Trust Obey, really cool. Fear and Bullets. This is my main man, Screamin' Jay Hawkins. Frenzy! As you can tell by this awesome cover, Screamin' Jay is a very extreme, very creative performer. And he is super stylish, and all his songs are spooky. All his songs are amazing. He's a great sense of humor, but he's also a really talented singer. He trained to be an opera singer. That's what his passion was. That's what he wanted to do. But he sort of fell into doing the spooky rock and blues, and he was doing that in the 50s and 60s and 70s and 80s, and he just kept doing that for a long time. But he used to come out, and his show was always insane, and he had the stick with the skull on it, and sometimes he'd have this large bone through his nose. So he'd come out and he was very wacky, very crazy, but to him it was never a joke. People used to sort of laugh at his his appearance and the way he looked and stuff. But I saw an interview with him where he was talking about his persona and his outfits, and he took it very seriously. To him, this wasn't a joke. He wasn't he wasn't cosplaying as a witch doctor, or it wasn't silly to him. He said, I believe his words were, I looked like an African warrior. You gotta respect that kind of passion. That's just awesome. You probably know his music from his hit, I Put a Spell on You. I have a bunch of his albums. This one's my favorite. It's a compilation. It came out in the 80s, and there are so many good songs on here, the title track, Frenzy, I Love Paris, There's Something Wrong with You, Orange Colored Sky, Temptation. So Temptation on here is very, it's very spooky, very Halloween, very you're under my spell kind of music. So this is so awesome. If you get a chance, see any of his performances on YouTube. He is completely out of control, and all his music I recommend. So Screamin' Jay. Ravi the Werewolf. I love how they give you his transformation, the steps of his transformation on the cover. It's so cool. It was performed live in Santa Monica at the Whaleback. He was a folk singer, and he would take folk songs and just make them spooky and weird and awesome. And the first song on here, the Vampire Man, is, once you hear it, it's just like that'll hook you on this guy's music. It's just so amazing. I found out about this. Jello Biafra is a big vinyl collector and a totally awesome person. As a side note, he pulled out, he has the original first pressing of this, and that's where I heard about this from him. And I looked it up, and it's just, every song is just so cool. And on the back, it's so funny. It's funny, wild, sick. And that's his head here. Anyway, Ravi the Werewolf. This is by a band called Cloud Becomes Your Hand. The album is called Rest in Fleas. This is my friend's band, Steve Cooper. I knew him. I grew up with him, junior high school. He's been my friend since then. He's one of these people that can play so many instruments. And this is very spooky, very original. First of all, I love the cover, the colors, and I love all the colors throughout the whole thing. Yeah, music like you probably have never heard before. Really interesting, really spooky too. So for me, the B-side has the most spooky tracks on the album. Garden of the Ape is my favorite track on the album. It's so well done, really, really fun, really creative. And then the last couple tracks, I don't remember if it's number 7 or 8, but one of them is this instrumental. And I actually saw the band live. I was in New York years ago for a different event. They just so happened to be playing while I was visiting New York. So I was very happy that I got to see the band. They were great live. And then that instrumental track, they performed this sort of dance to it, this synchro. The whole band did this dance where they were lined up like a big caterpillar or something. And that was really cool. That stuck with me. So Cloud Becomes Your Hand, this amazing band, and this album is just so good. Roky Erickson. Roky Erickson is sort of the psychedelic version of Screamin' Jay Hawkins, I guess. So all of his songs are very horror related, very spooky, very, just totally Halloween. Really funny and just really rockin' music. Burn the Flames on here is my favorite track. That will get you in the Halloween spirit just listening to it once. It's just totally awesome. Bermuda also, Starry Eyes, so many good songs on here. His music lived on. Roky Erickson. King Diamond, The Eye. This was the first King Diamond album I ever heard. I heard it in, I think it was high school or maybe it was junior high. King Diamond is just awesome. Merciful Fate is amazing. If you listen to any of his music, it's all really good. So all his music is very Halloween. This one is my favorite that he's done music-wise. I think it's really fun, and it's about the witch trials and religious corruption and sexual abuse and all this crazy stuff. The music is great, and my favorite track on here is on the B-side, Behind These Walls. So crazy. Insanity is really good too. That's an instrumental, and Burn on the first side. So cool. Give this a listen. This is King Diamond. And he's also just so awesome. Just, if you don't know who he is, look up pictures of him. He's really cool. So this is Gizem, and the album is Military Affairs Neurotic. This is my favorite album of theirs. They've only done a few albums, but this is my favorite. It's very metal, very punk, and extremely spooky, very Halloween. The atmosphere on this album is what I love the most. There's even this one track that's just spooky atmosphere music. This is one of my favorite albums. I've been playing it to death ever since I heard about them. The singer, Sakevi, not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, Sakevi maybe, Yokohama. He is a very extreme character. If you just look him up online, you'll see some of his adventures. And if you look up any of the very rare live Gizem performances, you will see that he comes flying off the stage, wielding flamethrowers aimed at his audience. Very, very extreme. He's a very, very crazy artist and very passionate about what he's doing. He's also an extremely talented visual artist. He does collages, and he has his own T-shirt line, and he's just a very cool person. Then the guitarist Randy Uchida, very famous in the Japanese punk scene. He's been in a few bands, and his guitar work is just incredible. But this whole album is so good. Gizem, Military Affairs Neurotic. I have another Japanese band here called Gastunk. They were around in the 80s as well. This album, Dead Song, was their first album. They are very cool, very, they are a very visual Japanese band, and very goth. Like, if you can see the image on the back, like, look at these goth dudes. And the singer especially is totally totally spooky. Every song on here is really good, but the title track to me is perfect for Halloween. It's called Dead Song. Very beautiful singing and just fast punk music. This just has the best of like all the worlds. The last album I'm going to talk about is the soundtrack to the anime Berserk. The score is by Susumu Hirasawa. Before I talk about the music or the series Berserk, what I really love about this is that the artist of the manga loved this musician, and this musician ended up doing the music for an anime based on his manga. I think that's so cool. I've never heard of like an illustrator, illustrating a book, or a writer writing a book, and then their work is adapted into some form of media, whether it's television or movies, and the musician they like does the music for it. Like, that to me is such a, it's such a respect for the manga artist, and also respect for the composer and respect for the fans. It's just such a marriage of just very positive, beautiful, inspiring things. So I think that is so cool about this right off the bat. I read the manga first, which is a masterpiece, and then I saw the movies, and then last I saw the cartoon. I knew the music was good, but listening to it on vinyl, and especially this really good pressing that they did, this was an experience for me. Like, this is why I love vinyl, because it's music you've heard before, but it's so dynamic, the sound, that it almost sounds brand new when you hear it. So this album is one of my most played albums that I own. Every song, it's just a masterpiece from start to finish. If you're looking for spooky songs, Ghost, track number 2, so awesome. Yeah. Murder, Gods, Fear, Monster, like so many spooky songs to get you into Halloween. Like, even if you are not a fan of Berserk, like the TV show or the manga, even if you don't like it, you could definitely get into this music, and especially around Halloween. And that is a sign of like truly masterful music, in my opinion. So I hope this list was enough to drag you out of your coffin this morning. And I really do hope it gets everybody in the Halloween spirit, and, gets everybody feeling creative, and maybe getting into making their costumes this year, and going to some parades and parties. And that's what Halloween is all about. I think that's great. So, yes, thank you on behalf of Spooky and myself, and ta-ta.